What is up, guys? It is that time. Yes, we are 3/4 away into the winter 2024 anime season, so it's time for me to sit down and dig through all the data and rankings to find out just which shows are in fact topping the charts. No, not based off of English ranking sites like Mal or AnyChart, but what shows are actually popular in Japan. Is it Solo Leveling? Nope. Is it Classroom of the Elite? No, but that light novel is still insanely popular. Is it Mashal? Sort of. Gushing Over Magical Girls? Hell yeah. This is the winter 2024 edition of Your Favorite Show Is Not Popular in Japan. Because we all know that a show ain't good unless Japan likes it. That's a joke, of course. All seriousness, this is a series of videos that I've been doing for each season to dissect, based on certain ranking sites, just how well matched the global market is to the Japanese taste. Partially because I just wanted to justify my love for Onimai, which Japan loved. The usual disclaimers before we start anything. These rankings are based on different sites, more geared towards the Japanese viewership. This can be through certain streaming sites, ranking aggregators for Japanese television, and whatnot. All this data is gathered during the day of recording and can fluctuate based on episode airings. Availability, exclusivities, early airings, and whatnot can also change these numbers. This data is not the end-all be-all, and it does not actually say that your favorite anime sucks. It's simply just an interesting way to kind of analyze interest in certain series. And honestly, it gives us a good perspective on the success of a certain property. Because yes, despite how well a show does in the West, all that matters to many of these companies is how many eyeballs it actually gets in Japan. Because yes, at the end of the day, in a lot of cases, in most cases, these are just advertisements for source material. With all that said, let's just dive right into it, starting things off with how well things are doing globally based on English aggregation sites. Honestly, looking at Mal and AnyChart, which are the two sites that I brought together, it's pretty equal across both of them. I will say that I'm more fairing my anime list because Frieren's at the top, and Frieren's an amazing series. But they're pretty much the same. The only real difference that we have between these two sites is that Frieren is taking #1 on Mal, and Solo Leveling is taking #1 on AnyList. But our ranking currently is sitting pretty much what you're expecting. You start out with Frieren, you go into Solo Leveling, you go into Apothecary Diaries. Classroom of the Elite is doing still incredibly well. I'm not sure exactly why that's the case. I know that the light novel is extremely popular, but there's a side of me that keeps on hearing from people that the adaptation is terrible. So it's like, okay, the source material is great, but people keep watching the show even though they keep saying that they're butchering it. I don't know. It's an oddity there. I haven't started myself. I kind of fell off at the end of the second season. I'm not sure if I'm going to get caught up on it, but either way, I'm glad people are enjoying it. Right up behind them, we have Mashal second seasons coming right into the picture, doing really well. And finally, #6 is Undead Unluck. It's a very surprising thing because I think in the last season's rankings, it was not doing very well. But I think it's gotten, obviously, having two cores to kind of work with, it's slowly building up that popularity. And yes, partly because a lot of people are watching it over that long period of time. So it has that time to kind of build up popularity. Shangri-La is like right behind it, and that's kind of the same concept there. It's had that time to kind of build up and for more people to kind of check it out. Beyond that, that's where things kind of get a lot different. We have on Mal, it goes right into Tsukimichi, then Dungeon Meshi, whereas on AnyChart, we have Dungeon Meshi, Sign of Affection, Chain Soldier, and then Tsukimichi. So it seems like AnyList, the people on that site don't seem to like Tsukimichi as much as my anime list, which again is kind of leading me towards, for once, to Mal in my taste there. But still, I do love Dungeon Meshi, and again, that's kind of right there at 8 and 9, so it's doing very well for the West. I actually love seeing A Sign of Affection that high as well. That's kind of a series that I expected wasn't going to get much attention. It's a slice-of-life romance series, which those are two things that a lot of people don't care much for. But then right behind that one, we have Chain Soldier, which is doing very well. In that, like, right at the breaking point into the teens. And then beyond that point, we really do have kind of an insane spread between the two sides and all the shows, as everything else is sort of just getting the pickings. As I see with pretty much every single season, you have, like, of course, the top two, typically top one, is going to have tons of popularity and viewership, lots of members. And then as it goes down beyond then, you have this massive drop. And then when you get down into the late teens and on beyond then, it's just your rare case of somebody just picking up a show here or there, or the diehards that are watching everything. But I do want to note, sad to see things like Gushing Over Magical Girls is way down there at 18 and 19, which I kind of understand. It's on High Dive for one thing, and the other aspect is that, yes, a lot of people aren't going to like how unapologetic it is. It's very lewd. But no, it's more sad to see things like Seventh Loop is way down at like 20 and 22, and then you have things like Level 99 Villainous way down at 21 for both of them, Weakest Tamer, which I think is the biggest hidden gem of the season's way down there at like 32. It's just barely up there. Sengoku Yoko, which breaks my heart as well, is way down at like 36 and 40. And then finally, the one that I think all the anti-tubers are trying to push as being the greatest thing since sliced bread, Bang Bravern, which we have to note, is way down at in the 40s for both sites. But that's all the ones that I really kind of want to note here, because we're going to be talking about them in a minute. Because typically with a lot of these kind of ranking sites for the global market, the English speakers, Mal, and AnyChart, they're usually in a lot of cases flip with Japan. So let's without further ado, let's start looking at Japan itself. Now, typically what I look at for rankings for Japan is going to be several different cases here. We have AnyCore, which is pretty much like the AnyChart and Mal list for Japan. I think I'm going to retire that list because it does have a good listing for viewership, or hits for the website itself, which is around the 1 million mark. Whereas something like Mal is getting like 53 million viewers, page viewership. So it's like a very fraction, but it's all Japan, whereas Mal is not really Japan at all. So it's still a good source to look at, but the data that's there is just not much. There's not really much to look at. I do want to note that they do have Danger to My Heart as number 1 on their site, but then you have like Cherry Magic's right behind it at number 2, and it's like, is Cherry Magic that interesting? But then when you start looking at the other aggregation sites, you note that Cherry Magic isn't doing well. So even though AnyCore is showing that Cherry Magic is beloved by at least those people that are on that site, it doesn't look like the other data itself is actually following it up or at least supporting that data. But again, this is like one of those rare cases where AnyCore is not really showing me any kind of consistency to anything else, all the other data. So I think for this video, specifically this season, I think I'm going to bench it. I think I'm going to bench AnyCore. But again, we still do have plenty of other sites. We have Abema, we have NicoNico. Abema is a streaming service which people can subscribe to in Japan and use. NicoNico is obviously kind of like the YouTube of Japan, which is very popular. And then we also have things like Video Research and Kanto, which is a ranking site or a ranking service that actually looks at television rankings, as well as Anime Eiga, which is also similar to that. Let's start off with the streaming sites, Abema and NicoNico. Now, the thing that I want to make very perfectly clear before we start to get into these is that Abema and NicoNico obviously have different exclusivities between the two of them. So you'll have a lot of cases where something is exclusive for Abema, and it's not even available on NicoNico. Like specifically, Frieren Beyond Journey's End, you'll see it on Abema, but you won't see it on NicoNico. So the rankings there kind of get skewed quite a bit. Now, to get the data for Abema and NicoNico, I use Ranking Stalker. This is a bot that's on Twitter. They also have a website you can go to, and they basically pull all the ranking data from the site itself. Now, specifically for Abema and NicoNico, that I'm going to get to in a minute, that's specifically for their actual viewership. And like I said earlier, that's based on this day. As of today, this is the rankings. And this can shift a lot based on when an actual episode is airing, because once an episode airs, obviously they're going to get more viewership and it's going to bump them up on the ranking. Now, quick note before we get into Abema and NicoNico, I do want to point out that the group that I use to actually aggregate this information does not include shows that are multi-core. So shows like Apothecary Diaries, Frieren, Shangri-La, those are not going to be included in this. But if you did kind of combine them together, yes, technically they're higher. But I'll get to that in a minute. Looking at Abema, we have at number 1, Classroom of the Elite, Season 3. So a big kind of consistency there between Japan and obviously the West. Then right behind that is our first big shocker of all of these lists, which is Fluffy Paradise. Yes, you'll note that we did not mention Fluffy Paradise when I was looking through AnyChart and my anime list. It's just not there. It's just way, way down there. But apparently on Abema, Fluffy Paradise is doing very well. And that's, seems like that would be logical in a lot of cases. There's a lot of shows that are just kind of very fluffy and just relax and enjoy it that are going to be very popular in Japan. Right behind that, Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. Again, number 3, which is kind of a shocker. But again, kind of fits the whole theme here. They like these shows that's just all about kind of having fun, isekai to another world. They don't really care about having something else crazy happening. Number 4, our first case of Mashal being pretty successful over there in Japan. On Abema at number 4. And then Instant Death Ability. Again, another one that I didn't even mention when I was going through Mal and AnyChart. It's way down there. But on Abema, Instant Death Ability is doing very well. I have my mixed reactions to the series, but I can see the appeal to it. And then finally, number 6, we finally get the appearance of solo leveling. Yes, number 6 on Abema is solo leveling. Not number 1, not doing as great on other sites. Like NicoNico doesn't really even have it listed, if I'm correct. Oh, it's way down in 20. So again, another case where it could be like a exclusivity, an early airing or something like that. But solo leveling's not doing as well as you would actually think it's doing. I'm actually thinking of it, looking into that. I'm not sure if maybe Japan doesn't really find it as appealing as the West does. I know that it's based off a manhwa, and I think the manhwa itself hopefully did pretty decently well in Japan. That's why they decided to do an adaptation of it, but it is interesting to see it that low. And then number 7, yes, level 99 villainous. At least Japan knows the goodness that is level 99 villainous, and even on NicoNico it's doing very well. So I'm really happy to see that there. Something that I'm not happy to see high is number 8, Tank. The Tank Show, 99999 defense Tank Show. Okay, I can see it. It's a fun little like harem show with a guy that's super beefy. It's like a non-edgy version of Shield Hero. Why not be popular? And then number 9 we have Dungeon Meshi, which that's kind of a surprise to see that low, but again, it's kind of across multiple platforms. This is just Abema. And then we have 10, Chain Soldier. Number 11, Torture Princess. That's another one that's not really, surprisingly, doing very well in the West. The Torture Princess is doing pretty decently on Abema. Then we have 7th Loop, which I'm happy to see that high. I wish it was higher. I really do enjoy 7th Loop. Then we have Unwanted Undead Adventurer. Number 14, Bang Brave Bravern. Finally, we get the appearance of Bang Brave Bravern. It's not 40-something, but it's up there. It's up there. And that's to be expected. Bang Brave Bravern is essentially a sort of interesting take on the whole super mecha robot thing, which honestly, I've never really seen being that popular in the West. I mean, there was a time where it was like a really popular thing to have on like, you know, Saturday night or Saturday morning cartoons, but overall, it's just not a popular franchise over here. So it does make sense that it's more popular over there. Going into number 15 for Abema, we have Tsukimichi 2nd season. Then we have Dr. Elise. Again, another one that's decently high for Japan, which I'm happy to see. Sasaki and Peeps. And then finally, number 19 on Abema, Weakest Tamer. My gem of the season is way down there. Then further down, we have like Gushing Over Magical Girls 21. 22 is Witch and the Beast. Onsen, the Isekai Onsen show, is 23. Hokkaido Gals, Tomazaki-kun. And yes, finally, the Cherry Magic show, that's way down in 27. So even over there, it's not doing very well. Like I said, just doesn't seem to fit with Anycore. Going into NicoNico, again, this is going to be very substantially different than Abema because, again, exclusivities, early access, all that kind of stuff that's different from Abema itself. But yes, jumping right into number 1, Dungeon Meshi. There it gets its credits. There it gets its love. So yes, still, despite it being pretty low on Abema, there is an excitement for Dungeon Meshi. It is doing well. Obviously, Trigger, you know, again, doing some really incredible stuff with it. But the thing that excites me the most, I think NicoNico's list is the one that kind of shocks me the most. I love this list. Number 2, yes, Gushing Over Magical Girls. And again, I want to specify here that based on the platform is different listings for Gushing Over Magical Girls. Some are going to be censored, some are going to be uncensored, some are going to be partial censored, and so that's where you're going to have a lot of that difference there for Gushing specifically. But again, still excited to see it. Number 2. Thank you. Somebody loves Gushing Over Magical Girl. This is literally my onimai of this season. I can at least say, well, at least Japan likes what I like. And then number 3, again, this is the shocker, Bang Brave Bravern. And again, it makes perfect sense the why Japan is loving it so much more than the West is because, again, they love those super mecha robot types of shows. Now, I will also mention the idea that it's not really kind of the same flavor as a super robot type of show, so don't take that as like it has to be that. It is sort of a weird spin on it because you do have a very serious world where death is happening. It's just you have the implanting of a super robot geek robot and it does add this quirkiness to it. But anyways, you can check out my whole first impression video that I made on it. It's a very, very interesting show. Jumping right into 4, we have Torture Princess once again. Another big shocker there, how high that one is. And again, it's just a fluffy, fun show. It's doing incredible with the animation. Japan's loving it. Number 5, again, level 99 villainous. Thank you. Thank you, Japan. This is so funny how typically I look at the Japan rankings and I go, I'm liking this so much more. But that's another one right there. Number 6. And this is something that I honestly do not see as being that big of a shock. And the main reason why is because it's humor and who is actually starring in it. But yes, number 6 is Snack Basue. Snack Basue is essentially a show about some, waitresses at this bar, and they're just listening to the stories of people that come in to get drinks. And yes, the main lead lady is Rie Takahashi. And so I was kind of expecting coming into the season, seeing that way down at the bottom of like Mao and stuff like that. Like nobody's like even paying attention to it. The PV doesn't look that good. But I just knew based on the seiyuu for the main character, I'm like, that's probably going to be very popular in Japan. Because all she got to do is go on to like a television show and say, hey, it's me, Rie Takahashi. I'm on Snack Basue. Bam. Rankings. She literally sells things. But anyways, moving on. 7, Sasaki and P. Very interesting again, seeing that high. Wrong Way to Healing, which is right after that. Classroom of the Elite, right after that. Instant Death Ability, Change Soldier. Ponomichi, finally getting somewhere. 7th Loop, Hokkaido Gals. Mashal, way down there. Again, it's more higher on Abema, probably because of different listings or whatever. Tank 999, Weakest Tamer again. It's up there. It's somewhere. Tsukimichi, Villain Day Off, solo leveling way down at 20. Again, it's very interesting to see just how differently solo leveling is doing over in Japan. Now, it could be doing very well on just regular television, but with the rise of streaming and whatnot, you can kind of see that should be starting to do better over there. Unfortunately, the group that I was using, the Ranking Stalker, what they basically do is when the new season starts, they stop really categorizing based on viewership the multi-core shows. Now, I was able to kind of compare the listings for Apothecary Diary, Frieren, all these the dual core shows, and compare them based on episode count to this new season. Based on that, Apothecary Diaries is still number 1. Frieren's right behind it, despite the fact that Frieren doesn't really even have a viewership on NicoNico. And then right behind that's Dungeon Meshi, Shangri-La, Classroom of the Elite, and Brave Bang Bravern. So that's like a combined rankings across Abema, NicoNico, with those multicolor shows. So Apothecary Diaries and Frieren is still top in the charts for those two sites. It's just, again, those rankings over there did not have those listed in it, unfortunately. Now, with all that said, we have 2 other sites that we can look at. We have Video Research and Kanto. What this is just basically TV rankings based on aggregations of actual television broadcasts, not streaming sites. And based on those ones, I did find some interesting information in it for once. Typically with Video Research and Kanto and Anime Eiga, they don't typically give us anything that we're watching. They're typically like the Detective Conans, the Doraemon. They're the long-running series that just even families themselves and fathers and whatnot, everybody that doesn't even watch anime in Japan that we call classified anime, it's what they watch. So it's very rare to see anything that's like new on those sites. It's typically like your long-running series. But this time around, we did actually have a few very surprising things. In Video Research and Kanto, we had, of course, Demon Slayer. They're doing that rebroadcasting, and that one hit number 1. Sazai, Detective Conan, Chibi Maruko, and then we have Doraemon, Precure. Then number 7, and this actually makes sense because there has been a lot of chirping about how successful this has actually been doing for the actual broadcast channel that it's on, Frieren Beyond Journey's End. I am so happy to see that is actually breaking into it. Like I said, these research groups are literally looking at television shows that the major populace, that despite not being anime fans, are watching on a regular basis. Again, the Saizon and the Detective Conans that are just, they keep going and they keep getting viewership. Frieren to be on that list is a massive, massive deal. And then right behind that, we have Daigo, Fire Daigo, which again, is a very popular franchise over there. And then One Piece at number 10. Looking at Anime Eiga, number 1, Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Number 2, Apothecary Diaries. Both of those ones, super happy to see those are doing really, really well on actual broadcast television. Then we have Pokemon, their new series, Kingdom 5, Dungeon Meshi. Again, another one that's very surprising seeing on there. And Shangri-La Frontier. Followed by Danger to My Heart second season. Finally, somewhere in Japan lists Danger to My Heart second season. It looks like it actually is doing very good in certain television broadcast areas. Then we have Mashal second season, Tank 999, and then unfortunately, Solo Leveling, way behind there. Again, this is kind of a shocking thing how I'm seeing this consistency of Solo Leveling not doing very well in Japan. And again, this data could have some leaks here or there, and again, it could be based on just exclusivities. Some people might be watching it somewhere where it's exclusive that's not in these rankings. So keep all that in mind. But it is kind of a shocker. I kind of want to look more into what exactly is happening with solo leveling. Is it just not that big in Japan? That's the massive question mark there. It's obvious that Aniplex and Sony, they have been putting a lot of work into this property. I would assume, hoping this will be the next big shonen that they can actually get out there and be very massively popular. But it doesn't seem like it's doing very good in these rankings, which is kind of surprising. So that is it. That is all of our rankings. I think the biggest kind of shockers that we have here is Dangers and a TV rankings in Japan doing well, which again, I'm super happy about because my gosh, second season has been doing absolutely incredible. It is just literally weaseling its way into, hopefully, my top favorite anime of all time. And additionally, like I said, Japan at least confirming my love for Gushing Over Magical Girl is doing very well over there. Of course, they did have like that limited edition they had to do a reprint of, which doesn't really tell you too much because in a lot of cases, these limited editions, they just print a very small amount of them. It came with a figure and everything, so they probably didn't produce many of them. But still, despite that, happy to see that Undead Unluck is slowly building up in popularity in the West. Additionally, I like to see that kind of similarity across the board of the popularity with things like Apothecary Diaries, Frieren, Mashal, Clash from Elite, which is really cool to see. And again, despite them doing terrible in the West, loving seeing the love that Japan's giving to things like Brave, Bring, Bravern, Torture Princess, Level 99, Villainous, Snack Boss Away, Sasaki and P. Those shows, again, that are not Snack Boss Away for me personally, but those are shows that I think are really good and unfortunately aren't really getting too much attention in the West. So that's it. That is your favorite anime is not popular in Japan. As per usual, I always love to ask you guys down in the comments down below. Let me know what show for you that you really love that is doing very, very poorly in the West and on Mal and AnyChart and all these other sites that's actually doing very well in Japan. I love seeing the difference between the two sides and just what kind of fluctuates under those big top shows. I think that's typically where it's at. You'll see the top 1 and 2 and 3 are pretty, good across the board, and then suddenly out of nowhere you have everything else is just kind of rising to the surface for Japan, which I love. I love seeing that love that Japan has for a lot of these titles that just get completely overlooked in the West. So additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to check out my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does. And until next time, y'all take care.